I'm writing this because my hands are still shaking when the wind gets under the door. I work field installations for a small telecom contractor out of Durban. We'd picked up a contract to survey and pre-align a pair of microwave repeaters between Impendal and Bulwer. Just 3 guys, a bakkie, and enough cable ties to make a net. It was me, Spoo, 33, Pieter, 36, all beanie and dry jokes, and Themba, 39, who could list a generator by himself and always packed 2 extra headlamps. We knew the area in daylight. We didn't know it at 2 a.m. When the reed beds hiss, we asked to camp by an old mission school because it was central to the hills we needed to climb. The caretaker there, Ubaba Ndlovu, waved us through the rusted gate and counted us with his eyes like he was remembering faces. He said, "If you must sleep, sleep high." He kicked one of the bricks under his iron bed. I laughed because it sounded like a joke, and he didn't. Peter caught my eye and pinched his mouth like, "Let the man talk." "It walks low," Baba said. "It likes the edge of the blanket. Don't leave food. Don't whistle in the night. And if you hear your name, don't answer." He said it the way you tell someone where the first aid kit is. The first evening tasted like wood smoke and relief. We'd driven all day on tracks, argued about bearings over a map that wouldn't lie flat, and finally had meat hissing in the pot. Themba always makes a line of ash around his tent. He says it keeps out scorpions and stubborn luck. Peter told him it was a waste of good ash, and then helped anyway. A stray dog wandered up to the fire and plopped down like he owned the place, and we let him, because every camp is better with a dog. There was an old swing set near the mission's yard where the wind made one chain squeal. It sounded like a child practicing a single note and getting it wrong. First weird thing, the generator shook itself toward the tent in the night. I know that's not how machines behave, but the morning told on us. One bolt had backed itself near out, the spanner lay in the dust a meter away, and something, I'm not saying what yet, had put small prints in the red earth. 3 toes. Not a dog's. Not anything I recognized. My water bottle wore faint round dents, like someone tried to bite it and found it too hard. Rock Dassie. Peter guessed, though even he didn't sound convinced. Themba rubbed the back of his neck. "People say," he started, then shut it down with a shrug. Nobody wanted to step on the caretaker's warning with laughter that early. Not after seeing the tracks slide under a thorn bush and vanish. Later, topping up paraffin and bread, because we'd underestimated how much paraffin we'd burn to fight the cold, the spaza owner noticed our camp tags and asked where we were staying. When we described the mission, he nodded the way people nod at a grave they're not ready to visit. "My brew," he said to Peter, in that rural way of mixing friend and warning. "Don't whistle at night. It comes for that. We promised, because that's what you say when someone old enough to be your uncle turns a suggestion into a rule." Driving back, I made a joke out of it anyway, puckering a little tune as the bakkie bounced a cattle grid. The wind seemed to hold its breath. Somewhere in the grass, something answered the shape of my note. Not the pitch, like it didn't know how, but the shape. Peter looked at me hard enough that I put my tongue away. That night, the dog wouldn't come near the tents. It stood by the mission steps, hackles up, just watching our shadows move. I went to sleep with my ankles comfortably hot in socks, the cot legs set on bricks, because I had belt and suspenders energy after the spaza warning. Something tugged me out of a dream, like a fisherman setting a hook. The cot shuddered. My feet went cold. I didn't move, which is a thing you learn in the bush. Freeze first, then think. The nylon wall caved inward beside my knee with the slow pressure of a hand. 5 long fingers, too long, pushing the fabric. No breath, just the sound of someone trying not to breathe. On the floor, the ash that Themba had sprinkled earlier smudged as if a small heel had pressed into it. We didn't wake Peter. He was already squatting beside his cot, eyes like coals, hand around a torch he didn't switch on. Themba mouthed, "It touched your tent too?" I nodded and only then noticed my name on my own tongue, ready to call out for help. I swallowed it. We spent the coldest hours listening to the weight of the dark press down on canvas, and the swing keep missing the same note. At dawn, we carried our cots to the mission stope like cowards and made coffee. When the caretaker came to sweep, he saw everything we weren't saying. He burned impifo in a clay bowl and walked slow circles, smoke trailing his prayer. "Don't answer your names," he said. "If you must call, say Mfawethu, brother, and don't whistle. If it comes inside, keep to the bricks and speak soft. It sometimes likes water and milk. Don't give it." No one laughed this time. The second day pushed us hard. 2 hills to climb, a path that turned out to be a cattle track into nowhere, a microwave dish that didn't want to sit level on its temporary pole. We got most of what we needed, came back after sunset, and decided we'd leave at first light to put distance between us and whatever walked low. First light had other plans. The Hilux refused to turn over, dead as a stone. We lifted the bonnet and found greasy marks on the battery that none of us owned, and a smear across the windscreen where a small wet hand, or something like a hand, with 3 forward toes, had slid down the glass. "Okay," Peter said, voice tight. "We're going to do this careful." Themba wiped the screen with a rag like you'd wipe a face down after a fever. The swing didn't move. Everything else did, a little, like the Veld had started to breathe. We decided to take the key and the radios and jog the 5 kilometers to the caretaker's rondavel to use his landline. Themba said we should not split up. We did not split up. We trotted in a line, breath clouding, the dog ghosting our heels until it stopped dead and refused the path. Halfway there, something hooted from the fig trees. Not an owl. Wrong throat. Then, from my left, from the tall grass, came my mother's voice. "Sibusiso." She lives in Umlazi and doesn't go near Veld after dark. I didn't answer. Themba's name followed, then Peter's in a child's mouth, syllables squashed like putty. The thing that paced us used my own 3-note whistle, incorrect and breathless. "Don't," Themba muttered, like he could feel my answer build under my tongue. We saw it then, or rather we saw where light broke because something was there. Low and fast and too much head. We hit the rondavel door savagely and shouted for the caretaker, "Mfawethu, Mfawethu," because names can be doors too. He let us in and dropped a pole in the brackets and did not ask questions straight away. He refreshed the ash line on the floor the way you redraw a map before an invasion. Calm hand, careful wrist. We heard something patter on the outer wall and slide along it like it couldn't quite find the seam. The caretaker placed his iron bed even higher on bricks and made us stand on the bed slats with him, like children practicing a dance. He said prayers under his breath that smelled like dry grass and rain. The thing outside tried our names again in a voice that was almost right. It dragged something that sounded like a sack of wet reeds. When it knocked, it used knuckles and tapped 3 times, polite. Dawn is a kind of mercy. At daylight, what hunted us felt suddenly like a rumor that had borrowed our bones to stand up in. We found a gift, or a warning, set neat by the rondavel threshold, a little whistle carved from bone with 3 holes, and a doll made from grass twisted tight with a blue thread. The caretaker didn't touch either. "Someone sent it," he said. "Or it wants you to know it knows you." The Hilux started that time as if an argument had been resolved while we weren't listening. We packed with the speed of people pretending they aren't hurrying. On the last morning, when I stooped to kick my brick back under the caretaker's bed to where it belonged, my fingers came away black, like the underside of the brick had been kissed with soot. Work returned to normal by pretending nothing had happened. My manager nodded at the data I brought back and only laughed when he saw the ash smoothed into the seams of my boots. Peter drank his beer slowly for a week and never put his beanie away. Themba took to carrying a Bible he never quoted. We finished the job ahead of schedule because staying late on those hills felt like asking a question none of us wanted answered. The dog did not follow us when we left. The caretaker stood by the mission steps as we drove off, hand raised just above shoulder height, like he was blessing the dust and not us. I slept at home with the window open and told myself the city had its own monsters, and none of them cared about my ankles. 2 weeks later, I unpacked my camp box to wipe everything down and found the bone whistle under a coil of paracord. I hadn't put it there. We'd left it in the yard by the rondavel like you leave a snake alone. That night, as I closed my eyes, a breathless wrong whistle answered the sound of my kettle clicking off in the kitchen. 3 notes, the shapes of mine, almost right. I opened my eyes and watched the duvet lift a fraction where there was no draft. I slid my feet up, tight to my knees like a child. I told myself my bed is high enough, that bricks are a superstition, that a name is just sound waves. The next morning, the bed had shifted 3 centimeters toward the door, the way a thing that walks low might inch a prize. I went to a hardware store and without looking at the cashier asked for 4 bricks. The man behind the counter didn't laugh. He just nodded and said, "For under the bed." "Neh," I nodded back. I have not whistled since